Hello everyone. I'm actually doing our video of the week via Instagram. Usually I upload to YouTube directly, but today I'm actually gonna have a guest and I'm super excited for you guys to get to know a little bit about him, get to know a little bit about his story.
This is Julio. Julio's in New York and I'm in Hong Kong. So if you want to make life happen, you make it happen some way, somehow. But without further ado, so the reason why we're doing this live is because Julio has a story to share. We all have a story to share. And the point of Life After Loss is to normalize the conversation about grief, about death. You know, these are conversations that are quite uncomfortable, that are quite scary, that are quite real and raw. But the more we all actually share a story, the more we realize how not alone we are, the more we realize how truly connected we are if we just like have the courage to take the step to be real with our experience. Tell us a little bit about yourself. So as I told you, you can tell us anything about your personal life, professional life, what makes Julio Julio as a human being.
First and foremost, I'm just I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son, friend. That's how I, view myself, as just a person, like a people person. The things that I enjoy doing with my life in general is music and fitness. So those are my two main things right now. Yeah, like I said, I'm a father and I'm a husband, and I enjoy those two roles a lot.
From my perspective, I have to say that when I met Julio, which was at the CrossFit gym that I trained at, that he was a coach in, when I would look at him, you would see him as this quiet, reserved, very nice, your typical person where it's like, yes, like, likes everyone and just does his job, goes with the flow. But when we actually started having a conversation, it's like I realized how much depth there was to you, like how deep your soul actually went. And like,
Sure.
It took very little time for us to be like, wow, like exactly, like you finally get it. Like these are, again, real conversations that we don't normally have with everyone, just because it's like, heaven forbid you show emotion or that you're
Right.
human in this life. The point of this live is to talk a little bit about your story, right? To share your story and kind of your experience behind it. So today we're going to talk about how loss actually affects our relationship, and it's not just the relationship we have with the world, but it's also the relationship we have with ourselves. There are secondary losses that we don't necessarily think of until we're at the point of experience. So we think that after the loss of our loved one, pretty much that's the only loss we experience, where that's just the tipping point of all the losses that we're bound to experience afterwards. So tell us a little bit about your story, Julio.
My story with loss, I mean, to be honest, it starts from young. My mom's side of the family, lost a lot of people due to, drug violence, due to them being in less than desirable situations because of money or drugs. My parents grew up in that environment, and once they got married, they had us. We were, raised in the Bronx, not in the greatest of neighborhoods, but not in the worst of neighborhoods either. Seeing this growing up, how my mom reacted to loss, and how my father or my grandmother, just people around me that I really loved, that made me think, man, like, I'm going to lose somebody one day. How am I going to act? What am I going to, feel like? So I made a conscious effort, I think to really appreciate people in the moment, at the time. And it's not an easy thing always to do that, but I think it helps with understanding how I'm dealing with things now. 2 years ago, I guess 2.5 years ago, yeah, I think, my dad gets diagnosed with glioblastoma. That's a cancerous tumor in the brain, and it doesn't allow for a highly successful operation. It's kind of a risky thing. We got this news. We're told, hey, you guys should prepare. And this is in the Dominican Republic. My mom and my family being, Christians, we were really trying to just, ask for a miracle, see if we can pray for a miracle here, right? I was hopeful, but I was also, I'm a realist sometimes when it comes to this stuff, not pessimistic, but just like, look, the odds are he may not make it. I want to appreciate this time with him. So once we got that news, he was in the hospital. They gave him some medication that allowed him to feel, okay. They're like, hey, you can just live the rest of your days taking this medicine, let this thing run its course, or we can operate on Julio Sr. and see what happens, see if a miracle comes out of it, right? And we were like, okay, well, how much is it going to cost? And then they're like, it's going to cost this, amount of money. And it was just like, man, we don't have that. So that weekend we were like talking about the GoFundMe that we put out on Instagram. We had an amazing response to it. I mean, so many people gave to the cause, man. It was pretty emotional and like we were so grateful for it. Just seeing that, man, I was just like, wow, like there's hope, there's hope.
Right.
So,
and let me cut you off right there, but I love the fact that you were able to highlight that, just because, again, the fact that you said, oh, even strangers gave to this, like, to help me. You see how little we need in order to be able to be there for another person, for another human being. You don't need to have known the person. You don't need to have any relationship, but just the fact that, this person is struggling, this person is in a challenging experience right now, and just having that human connection. We all have that ability. We all have that ability.
Absolutely. Yeah. I that's what I noticed the most, is like, wow, like this person is feeling what I'm feeling. Like, man, that could be my dad, or that was my mom, or that was my dad a year ago, 2 years ago. And she made it through. Let me help. Or, you know what? My uncle didn't make it through, but I feel this person. So whichever side you're on, you still connected, and that was really, a beautiful thing, because I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel like, oh, I have to go through this by myself. So I was super grateful for that. So he got the biopsy. They told him, okay, yeah, this is what you have. This is, definitely what it is. And it's like an aggressive form of this disease. You can either go home, you can have a stay-at-home nurse, or you guys can kind of help. Mind you, I have 5 sisters, but most of us have kids and we're married. So there wasn't really much wiggle room to care for dad outside of the hospital. What we did is that we basically took him home and gave him some medicine, but we noticed that, I forgot what the side effects were, what the deal was, but I think we stopped giving him the medicine, and it just got worse. It got like so bad, he couldn't talk, he couldn't move. My mom and I think one of my sisters were there and, taking care of him. And he's a 200-pound man. Just think about my mom. She's like 5'6", 5'7", like trying to lift up this grown man. Like, I was like, man, this is just not good. This is not, this just doesn't look like we can sustain this for the next, month or so. As his condition started to deteriorate at home, we decided, I think my mom or my sister Denise, they got hooked up with this hospital that had this program that could either cut the cost of the operation or do it for free. They were a voice of reason in a very difficult time. Even if they said, hey, this is not 100%, but like, it's going to be okay. You're going to survive this. We're going to go through this with you. And they were like kind of the family that I think my mom and some of the family over there needed, the friends and, the confidants that they needed for themselves when we weren't there, when some of the family here in the States couldn't be in DR. So they took my dad into this hospital. They wound up doing this operation, and it went well. But for whatever reason, at the end of it all, he just, his body, I guess, was just tired. He just couldn't, he just couldn't handle it. I got word the 16th. I was actually at the gym coaching, and one of my sisters called me, and she tells me I'm kind of upset about it at the moment, because I'm like, yo, I'm teaching a class.
Right.
Like, don't, like, what are you talking about? Like, just, like, I'll talk to you later. Right. But she calls me, and then my wife starts to text me, and she's like, yo, have you heard? And I was like, yeah, my sister called me, but like I wasn't too sure what she was, actually talking about, because it was like, oh, I think she said, I feel like something bad happened. I feel like something bad happened. And I'm like, what? What are you
Right.
talking about? Kind,
And I
kind of
feel
like,
like perhaps this was also you yourself trying to build up that defense mechanism and trying to protect you from the reality that you perhaps knew already
sure,
was. Right.
sure.
It's like when we know things are probably already going to happen, it's like you also want a little bit of that healthy dose of denial. Like, nope, that's not going to happen. Nothing bad's going to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. But it's also like I couldn't deal with those emotions
Yeah.
there, and as soon as she told me, I was just like, damn, now it's in my mind, and now I have to
Mm-hmm.
like deal with this, right? I hear confirmation, I guess from my wife and my mom, I think, or my sister, I think it was one of my sisters, and I said, all right, cool, like, all right, I gotta go, I gotta fly
Right.
out. So I hit up, the parties after, hit up, hey, I'm not gonna be at work tomorrow. Hey, I need 2 weeks off. I need to do this and that and the third. I think when I got home, my mother-in-law was there, my brother-in-law David was there. They greeted me at my house when I got home from work, and they were, um, you know, pre- pretty, heart-stricken for me.
Right.
But I was kind of, I was like, no, it's fine. Thank you for being here. Do you want something to drink? Do you need something?
Mm-hmm.
Just, still kind of trying to keep it together. And then, we flew out the next day, and I was still feeling good. I think on the flight I had a couple of drinks, not too crazy. I wasn't like, oh,
Right.
but I was like, man, it's like 12 o'clock, and I'm
I
having like
know.
3 drinks right now. But like I was still put together. I had some, I had some food to eat or whatnot. But the first thing that happened is that I was writing this music was coming to my head, lyrics were coming to my head, and that's just how I deal with this stuff. Like
Right.
this thing was coming to me, and on the flight over for 3.5 hours, I'm on my phone. I'm just writing lyrics and, writing to this song that my drummer sent me. Thank God, because it just kept me really focused on something. And I just was writing and writing, and I was like, man, this is so therapeutic for me. From the jump,
Right.
Lindsay, I was just like, okay, I'm already going through something, and this is taking me out of my head right now. When I land in DR, it's pretty emotional for me because the last person to greet me there was my dad and my mom. So, it was like, man, it started to sink in, I get to the house, and, I'm okay. I'm okay, looking around and being there. But man, the second that my mom comes that evening, because I think I got there in the early afternoon, man, she was just not in good shape. She wasn't in good shape, and it broke my heart. As the son, I had to put my emotions aside, and just focus on her. My whole deal was to get her out of here as quick as possible. Get her out of DR as quick as possible. The longer she stayed there, the more she's gonna be reminded of, like, it's gonna sink in. Like, she's just gonna, like, I didn't want to have a breakdown or anything like that. So I was just like, all right, I got 2 weeks to do this, where we're going to get his ashes. We're going to do this and then the third. We're going to have the viewing and the kind of like the church ceremony, I guess. But yeah, I just wanted to get through that and then try to get her home as quick as possible. This was right before Thanksgiving break. She didn't want to be there for the holidays because she knew how it was last year with him, and
Right.
she didn't want to be
Right.
reminded of all that. So
And thank you for
anyways,
highlighting that, Julio. I'm sorry to stop you just briefly. Thank you for highlighting that just because, like you mentioning, I just wanted to get my mom out of there because I knew as time progressed, it was going to sink in. And the reason why it was going to sink in, it's because all these places that she was probably used to going with your dad, all these activities that she was used to partaking with your dad, all of that was going to become very apparent. Like, dad is no longer here. My
hmm,
husband's no longer here. And even the
yeah,
fact of you mentioning the holidays, that's when it really almost like stamps and seals itself, like as far as the loss goes, where it's like
yeah.
at this dinner table, at this celebration, at this function, like this person is no longer here.
When I was going through this, I remember you
Right.
going to the memorial service here in Manhattan. You're very wise, but you've been through it too. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like you know, your foresight with these things is very it's very spot on, you know, but it is, you know, you do know that it's very unique to each individual as well.
Exactly.
So there isn't one size doesn't fit all, you know.
Right.
But like mentally, I feel like if you're in a place, like if you put yourself in a, you know, in a decent place, you know, in a good place mindset wise, then maybe you can handle certain things, or deal with certain things in a much better way. You know, you're just mentally better prepared for the experience, you know. Okay, going back to getting her out of there as quick as possible. We spent 2 weeks there, and she wanted to stay longer because she felt like she hadn't done much stuff.
Right.
And that's the weekend too, Lindsay, that I found out my wife was pregnant. We found out in DR. You know, I was like, man, even more so I gotta go.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
here caught in this, you know, in between of like wanting to be a, you know, really good son, and do the right thing by mom, but then also like I gotta be a husband too, you know, and
Right.
be there for my wife. You know, eventually we book a flight back to New York, and that's it. I'm like, all right, mom, we're going. That's it. And we came to New York, and that, you know, I feel like the first few months of us being here were really, really difficult for her, especially, and it's still difficult for her and my sisters, and it's really difficult for me as well. But I think
Mm-hmm.
definitely because of my wife being pregnant, and like having my daughter being born, you know, 9 months later or 7 months later, like it had me, you know, I had directed my focus a little bit towards her, just because it really did get me out of my head.
Right.
So now we're gonna tie this into how, you know, the loss has affected my relationships, right? I've said that, you know, I put my feelings aside. I put
Mm-hmm.
me aside to focus on, you know, family, you know.
Right.
And I'm not saying so much physically, but emotionally I put myself
Right.
aside, right?
And that's something that I really want to highlight, just because I actually had a IGTV live last week
Mhm.
about like how strong people oftentimes are invalidated from their emotional experience, from their take on difficulties, but then we also invalidate and put ourselves to the side, like our feelings, our experience is not priority, because again, we're used to being the strong one for everyone else. We're used to take care of everyone else.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's it. You know, I had noticed that in putting my emotions aside, that my emotions will come out like in random moments. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it would be a song that I hear, or it would be a thought or something, and it'll just, you know, I'll go to the grocery store one day and I'll just bawl out cry, and I'm just like, yo, what
Right.
is up with me, man?
Right.
Like, what the hell? Like, that went on for, I mean, that still goes on now, but, you know, a little less, you
Do
know.
you think, Julio, it's because we either consciously or unconsciously give ourselves almost a timetable, like a timetable to grieve, where it's like, oh, it's been 3 months, it's been 6 months, it's been a year. Why am I still crying?
I think some people think that way. I don't really think like that. I just know that
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to forever have these feelings. You know, they're just going to be stronger calluses. You know, I'm going to build a stronger callus from it. You know what I mean? They're not going to hurt any less. I'm just going to be a little bit stronger, I guess, or just learn how to deal with it a little better. But
Exactly.
um,
How to live with it, right?
so with my wife getting pregnant, I try to put myself aside for her as well, you know, emotionally. She's seen me in it in so many different
Right.
ways. Like, in it mean like she's seen me good, she's seen me not so good, she's seen me distant. This has affected me and my relationships. I didn't really realize that until this year, especially with the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. Like, I feel like it's hyper focused now. You know, it's like,
Right.
whoa, I kind of like not seeing certain people. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
like not doing certain things. I have really close friends that we, you know, we love to take trips and stuff like that. And, you know, I revealed to some of them that I don't care for it anymore. You know, I don't
Right.
desire that right now. I don't necessarily think of it as a bad thing. I just feel like, man, this is just where I'm at right now. I want to be home with the baby. I want to do music. I just want to do more of what I love and be around more of what I love.
It almost sounds like you've had a shift in perspective. You
Absolutely.
mentioned, the way you already were interpreting this loss before it actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And when it finally happened, it kind of forced you to reshift your focus. And a lot of times what we think with change and when we just have different interests or evolve is that it's a bad thing. And the reason why we feel like that is not just because of how we feel, but also how people project their own stuff to us, right? So it's like, for instance, if friends are telling you, hey, Julio, let's go to the bar, let's do this, and you're just like, no, like, I really don't feel like it. Like, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're changing. What's going on? You used to like be down
Yeah.
for this. You used to be
Mm-hmm.
so fun. And
Yeah.
then we start to look at that as like, oh, what's going on with me? And
Sure.
then almost hold ourselves to the standard of, no, I have to return to the Julio that was before dad passed away. I have
Right.
to return to the Julio that was before life got real. And
Right.
that's just not possible.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
oftentimes why we struggle, right? Because
Sure.
we're trying to manage and learn ourselves from a whole different perspective. We're having to also discover ourselves, discover what brings us enjoyment, what brings us sadness, what makes us irritated, what frustrates us, right? We're having to
Absolutely.
learn that at the same time, trying to justify it to other
Yeah.
people. Do you feel like after loss, you kind of had a shift in perspective as it relates to valuing what actually brings quality to your life versus just, being in the mix of things?
It's a moment in time, in my life.
Right.
That's how I look at it. I look at it, hey man, just it's like it's right now. This is how I feel right now. Maybe right after he passed, maybe a few months after that, like, I would have been the opposite. I would have been like, I want to do everything. I want to live.
Right.
I don't know how long I have, right?
Right.
I don't know if I can get what he has. Like, I'm his son. I don't know. Like, who knows, right? But, like, that was me to a certain extent. But, people around me also suffer from me doing that as well. You know what I mean? I just can't be like, yo, I'm a father and I'm a, husband. I can't just up and leave.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't be random like that. I think that the beauty of all this, I guess with the friends and family is that there's so much love there. There's understanding and there's patience. That's the big takeaway that I've noticed is like, I thank you everyone for being patient. I thank my sisters and my wife and my family-in-law and stuff like that, and all my friends and musicians and co-workers for being patient with me and like being compassionate, and that really helps me without people actually kind of just checking up on you and maybe, hey Jay, you ready to do this? Are you ready to do that? Can
Right.
you let's go away. Some days I'll be like, yeah, you know what, man, that's a good idea. But then sometimes I'm like, nah, I'm just not there. I think having people around you that understand at least that, okay, he's going through something, let me allow him to go through what he's going
Right.
through and then just kind of be there for him is really important. I do have people in my life that, want to push a little harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I do appreciate them too, because I do get it. Sometimes I can't talk to certain people about certain things. Sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes I just want to just sit and watch a movie or just sit and talk or sit and have a beer somewhere and just enjoy listening to music. Sometimes I don't need to talk about what's going on with me. The other situation that's going on too is that as a son and as a brother, I have to reach out to my sisters and I have to reach out to my mom and I have to be there for other people that are grieving as well. And I think that's why it's this roller coaster of like this cycle of I'm managing myself, but I'm also managing, what they're feeling and what they're doing and trying to figure out where I can fit into their world as well. I can be very cold sometimes. I can say, Mom, I don't, I don't want to talk about it right now. But for the most part, she really needs to talk about it. I'm gonna be there. She lost her husband. I lost my father. We're both dealing with a different dynamics of loss.
Physically, mom is still with you, but you've also experienced the loss of who mom was when dad was around, right?
Absolutely.
That vibrant, exciting, very forthcoming like mom. That's the kind of mom like that you're now having to relearn. Okay, who is mom now? The same way
Absolutely.
people are having to kind of relearn who is Julio now. Again, it's like the little losses sometimes get overlooked just because you see the person still there. You see like, okay, this person's still in my life, where it's like, no, but we're still experiencing losses. And it's again how we carry them, because we can carry them from a sense of shame, and it's like, no, you can't be like this, or try to move them to a place where they no longer live. And it also actually very quickly brings me up to the story of the butterfly. I know that every time people talk about change, usually the metamorphosis of the butterfly comes up, but what people don't talk about is the loss that the butterfly has to go through first to evolve to that grand beautiful creature that it is. It comes from being a caterpillar, and then it goes into being a cocoon, and it's like all that is a process. It's like that caterpillar is like pretty much losing who it knew it was. But I'm sure if butterflies could speak, they could tell you like the discomfort and kind of the challenges in now having to learn yourself from this perspective as a butterfly, as a creature that can fly, as a beautiful thing. And it's like, I'm sure that all the other caterpillars are probably like, you're changing, you're not the same anymore. And it's easy for you to take that as, oh no, I want to be the same, but you can't go back to a place where you
Yeah.
no longer live.
No, you can't. That's something that I noticed, my mom dealing with. It's just so difficult for her to
Hmm.
think of life without him. I mean, these
Right,
are two people who met each other, I think, when they were teenagers or something like that. I think
right.
early 20s. That's a long time to be, with someone and married to them. Like, you experience a lot of just life. I mean, and my dad was just like super, super vibrant, super loving, and just he was a person for the people, like
Right.
to default sometimes. Yeah, losing someone that organic, that genuine, and so a special soul like that. Such a special spirit. I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard, and I could imagine for her, it hasn't been easy at all, man. But like I said, and I always tell her, I say, hey, mom, I want you to, I know this is not going to be easy, and I know that this is you're gonna have to deal with it till you pass as well. But
Right.
I want you to get strength from this, refocus your life into something. Dad would most 1,000% want you to live your life.
Right. And it's finding new meaning.
Right.
Finding new meaning.
Yeah, he would not want you to live sad, all the time, or thinking of how he died or that he's not here anymore. He just wouldn't want that. But it's easier said than done. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I try to be here for her. I try to be there for her and try to be there for my family. But I naturally gear towards, I always need my space. I always need to do what I need to do. If I'm not centered, if I'm not in the right place mentally, emotionally, physically, even, then I'm no good to anyone.
Hmm.
No good to anyone. So, I'd rather be away from, work on myself a bit, give myself what I need so that when I'm around you, I can give you what you need, and that,
Exactly, because we all give energy to one another. So it's like if you yourself know that you don't really have energy to give to yourself, or little energy to give to yourself, it's impossible to be able to be there and do that for other people. And just before we wrap up, what do you feel like is one message that you would tell yourself before having gone through all of this? Something that you wish you would have known at that time?
I wish I would have spent more time with him. I would have loved to have been in the trenches with him, like with my mom going through all that. There was something about the last time me and him saw each other that, like, he couldn't talk too well, but I was able to understand him. And, he would look at me and be like, yeah, like he's got it right. I don't know what it was. I don't know
Hmm.
why, but I was like, oh, this is what he wants. And I cherished the last few days when we would just hang out in the hospital, and I was just watching TV, or watching like a baseball game, or watching a basketball game or whatnot. I would just pull up right next to his, I pull a chair up right next to his bed, and we were just chilling there. I would like have my hand on the bed, maybe on his arm or something like that, or maybe not even. I would even be on the phone, but just being next to him
Right.
for that period of time, it felt good.
Right.
Knowing what I know, or knowing what I knew at the time, that he wasn't really gonna survive this. I wish I would have just been there more, and had more of that time, and like being there when he left. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why. Like
Right.
I don't. It's not something that I desired, but just like I just wanted to be there every step of the way. Like hey, I'm here. And
Right.
I'm gonna be with you like every step of the way. And I think
Right,
to be
because
honest,
you didn't want him to feel like he was alone.
exactly, yeah. That's what I would tell myself. Hey, Jay, slow down your life. Slow down your life a little bit. Your job's gonna be there. The music's gonna be there. You're gonna be fine. Just spend some time with that.
But I definitely I do hear you, and it's actually very powerful the fact that you're saying that you would tell yourself at that point to slow down your life, because that's oftentimes what we miss. We miss slowing down our life to actually live our life, right? We are constantly spending time creating and doing for the life that we want, that we oftentimes forget. Like, listen, life is in the everyday moments. Life is in the moments that we oftentimes take for granted. Life is being able to watch TV with a loved one. Life is being able to have a good laugh. Life is being able to just be in the same space together, right? And again, it takes experiences like this for us to kind of like wake up. And that's where the shifts in perspective comes. That's when the changes comes.
Absolutely.
And I think that the fact that, again, we can't go to the past, we can't change what's already happened, but I do see you right now in your current life making those amendments, as far as making time for that is important to you, giving your energy to what you feel like, no, this is what I need to be doing right now, because this is what's filling me, and this is what's filling the people that I love around me. So I think that it's one thing to wish that we could have been certain types of people, at that point before the loss, but I also think that it's beautiful that we're able to kind of take that and apply it to our practice of life today, because that's all we can do. We can
Yeah,
only be better human beings for the us that we are today.
absolutely.
um so Julio, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you coming on here, just because, again, I tell you guys over again that this takes so much courage, this takes so much bravery, just because not everyone is able to go there, because there's a lot of sadness involved, there's a lot of pain involved, there's a lot of fear involved in talking about things like this. But it's like, it's not until we go to these kind of conversations and mental spaces that we're able to unite just through our experiences, in making us feel more connected and less isolated and disconnected from our experience. So I thank you again 100% for being able to be this open and transparent, because you don't know how many people you've already been helping. And thank you everyone
Yeah,
for joining and staying with us in this very powerful conversation.
absolutely. No, thank you for having a platform that, you know, that people can actually get information from. I think you're doing great work. I don't think, like we stated earlier, like this topic is a little taboo sometimes, because people
Right.
keep these emotions really close to the chest, because it helps them kind of move forward a little bit, but they don't realize, or sometimes people don't realize, that talking about it and sharing it
Mm-hmm.
is really therapeutic. And it's a little, I think some people are, a little fearful of, like, oh well, I'm spilling my guts and I'm being vulnerable. But
Right.
hey man, we all have hearts and emotions, and we're all gonna go through this many times in our life. We might, and we're gonna die one day too. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
people around us are gonna go through it. We're gonna go through it. So it's like, hey man, let's make it something that we could at least live with in a healthy manner, and not,
Right.
in a way that's gonna create this toxicity within yourself
Right.
and the people around you. You know what I mean? So yeah, kudos to you for allowing me
Thank
to
you.
be on, and for giving me and other people a platform to kind of reach out to, or reach into, for information. So thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you so much, Julio.